We are living in a volatile political environment. You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorable.
Come on, man.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Come on, man. And if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It was a debate.
We are slowly approaching Groundhog Day, which means our furry little friend Phil will be emerging from his hibernation on February 2nd. The ritual says that if the groundhog sees its shadow because of a clear sky, he will retreat into his burrow and continue to hibernate for 6 more weeks. But if he does not see a shadow because of overcast, he will then venture out into the wilderness to begin his yearly routine, and that means that winter is over and spring is here. Unfortunately, the limelight this year has been taken away from our furry friend because Antifa has taken to the streets to riot for the first time this year, which is a direct indicator that winter is over and springtime is here. You like that rhyme? Mass protests and riots usually start up in March when the weather is a little more accommodating for the fragile exhibitionists who want nothing more than to go down in history as one of the individuals who helped start the proletariat uprising that will overthrow the capitalist system. No, as foreseen by the prophet Karl Marx. The Marxists' main squeeze for the year will be Tyre Nichols. And for those who don't know, Tyre Nichols is the latest victim of police brutality. Now, and I would say he's a victim of his own stupidity. Now, a disclaimer, hot take here, all right? I watched the 12-minute body footage of Tyre Nichols' arrest. It's brutal. But that brutality was brought on by his decisions when being detained by the officers. Causation and correlation. Fleeing led to the violent act from the police officers. His beating was not justified, but preventable. When being pulled over, he is asked by officers to exit the vehicle with hands up. He does not do that. The officers roughly take him out of the car, and it's a little excessive, but we have no context as to why they were acting like that. When on the ground, they ask him repeatedly to lie down and put his hands behind his back. And he chooses not to and begins to talk back to the officers. They then threaten to tase him if he does not do so. And then another officer says, "I'm going to knock you the fuck out." Why? I don't know. But it's a bit excessive. But anyways, Tyre, instead of complying to their demands, he chooses to fight with the officers and then runs away. Now this turns into a criminal pursuit and not an aggressive traffic stop. The officers with backup catch up to him and try to subdue him. And then he begins to wrestle with the officers. Once, someone has overwhelmed him, they then begin to ask him to lay down and put his hands behind his back. Once again, he does not comply and continues to struggle with the officers. They tase him, pepper spray him. One officer throws some punches at him, and another officer pulls out his baton and begins to hit him with it. He is finally handcuffed and taken to the hospital. Tyre Nichols then died 3 days later of cardiac arrest and kidney failure. And most people only saw that last part, which is him being beaten. Now, I will say it is aggressive, and the fact that it took 5 officers to finally subdue him is incompetence, and they need to be fired, which is exactly what happened. I've had my bad run-ins with the police officers before, Sometimes it felt like it was racially motivated, but most of the time, I was doing something I was not supposed to be doing. Luckily, my run-ins with the law never led to me having to go to jail. But when being detained, I have always complied with the demands of the officers. And the reason being is, 1, they are just doing their job, and 2, they have guns, and I don't want to end up on the other end of it and then become a statistic. So, when you refuse to comply, you endanger not only your life, but also the lives of the officers who have guns and want to go home at the end of the day. Tyree Nichols didn't deserve to die, but his decision that night opened up that door. And that might be harsh, but that is the truth. If his death was caused by the incompetent officer's use of force, the officers must be held accountable. And what I mean by accountable is not second-degree murder and is not aggravated assault or aggravated kidnapping. They were just doing their jobs. Now, I understand manslaughter for sure. Charge them with that. Because they kind of did, if that was the case, they kind of did lead to his death, but it was not, it was not like they were intentionally trying to kill him. Second-degree murder is a politically motivated charge. And it's grossly trying to overcorrect the situation. That is the DA trying to appease the protesters so they don't break out into a riot. And a lot of good that did, huh? That is also the DA nodding to political commentators like Van Jones, who shamelessly is trying to connect the situation to white supremacy. It's like, what? All the 5 officers were black. Get the fuck out of here. How do you make that connection? It's a bad situation, but we'll see what comes of it. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Deplorable Talk Show. You are here with Mr. Deplorable himself, Israel Perez. So this is a show where I give you my unfiltered opinion on politics and culture. I know nothing about the things I choose to talk about, but this is America, where opinions are just like assholes. Everyone has one. I just choose to record mine and spread it on the internet. So, we will start off today's show talking about the newly released body cam footage of the incident between Paul Pelosi and David DePape. It creates more questions than answers, that is for sure. We will then jump into the new bill being proposed by House Republicans that would take power away from the Fed over our finances. No, it will never pass the Senate, but it is a move that I want to see from our new leaderships within inside the House. The big lead for today will be about Oregon, possibly seceding from Oregon to join Idaho. I know that's a big eye roll, but it's important because it might just happen. And something like that has not happened since the Civil War. So let's just jump into this, huh? The ever-expanding case of Paul Pelosi's attack has been brought into the limelight again with newly released body cam footage of the attack. And just to recap for those who don't know, Paul Pelosi on October 28th was rushed to the hospital in critical condition after an assault that took place at his home. The attacker's name was David DePape. And Politico wrote back in 2022, so, the man accused of entering the Pelosi home and attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer specifically targeted the California Democrat. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott confirmed on Friday. That was consistent with the revelation that the assailant, a 42-year-old Berkeley resident, had asked, "Where's Nancy?" before his assaults. And it continues to say, David DePape forced his way into the home through a back entrance, Scott said. The police chief said on Friday that officers arrived at the house and entered through the front door, which someone, they didn't specify who, opened from the inside. They discovered DePape and Pelosi struggling in the entryway for a hammer, and after they instructed them to drop the weapon, Scott said DePape took the hammer and violently attacked Pelosi. The San Francisco Police Department and District Attorney Brooke Jenkins on Sunday clarified that there were just 2 people inside the home at the time, and that one of them had opened the door. Okay? Now, there were several conspiracies that were spreading from both the right and the left. The left was saying that David was a Q-head, and the reason he attacked Paul is because of right-wing extremism. And the right was saying that David DePape was Paul's gay lover. And someone in the house called the police, which means there were 3 people in the house, not 2, like the police report says. Now, and the left's theory has been debunked by a family member of David. His son came out and said if he was anything, he was a progressive. The Daily Mail writes. He also debunked the idea the attack was politically motivated. My father had a lot of political views and told me about a lot of different things, but he didn't subscribe to either political party, Democrat or Republican. DePape said the two parties are just covers and colors, his son said. What matters are the policies of each individual person. Each individual person is unique, and it's about rights, and it's not about right or left. That's just a distraction. Gonzalez said he believed his father was a member of the Green Party. My father had progressive views. He believed in human rights, equality, and justice. He was against the war. He was a peace activist, hardly a right-wing conservative, as he has been branded. So there's that, huh? Out the window. Now, as much as the left would like to shout that the right's claims are nothing but garbage, they still have not been debunked. And the release of this body cam footage doesn't do any justice to the left's claim of salacious conspiracy being pushed by the right. So let's just get to this and give this a watch because it's strange.
Yeah, definitely don't want all up here. I definitely don't want all up here. Hello. Yeah. Fucking said 2620, right? No, 2640. Oh, 40. Yeah, it literally said in there. Hi. Hey guys. How you doing?
Look at that.
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
It's so weird. What's going on here?
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer on call back.
Bro, oh shit.
Calls in the area that it's on the email.
I got him, Michael. Edward 14, Edward, send back up, code 3.
Code 3 back up at 26.
Give me your fucking hand!
Units code
Give me your fucking hand!
40 Broadway for 14 hours.
Edward 14, Edward, send medics, code 3 as well. You got it?
Sorry, 14 number 2, Dave, medic code 3.
Affirmative.
Yep. A little gruesome, but weird. You know, it's just the way that the door opened up. Like they were just kind of there, right? Like nothing was really going on. They were just. It kind of looked like Paul was smiling a little bit, just a little bit. Let's just go back to this door opening up because this is where it's actually really weird, right? Because if we were to remember back to the article, they said that someone opened up the door, and they didn't know who opened up the door. But if those two didn't open up there, who the fuck opened up the door? So let's go back and look at this, and we'll kind of run through it just a little bit slower, huh? See. So I'm gonna kind of pause and stop here. So let's see. So you see right there, door opened up, and let's go boom. Who opened up the door? He obviously, so it wasn't DePape because he had his hand on the hammer. It couldn't have been Paul because he had his hand on the hammer. And then if his left arm opened up the door, you would see a motion of Paul flicking open the door, right? So let's go back. Like, let's look at this.
2620, right? No, 2640. Oh, 40. Yeah, it literally said in there.
All right. But yeah, who does that? Door was opened up. Now there's nothing there. You don't see Paul's arm. See, who opened up the door? Who opened up the door? That's what I want to know. Who opened up the door? Because you would have seen Paul arm come across like that and come back, right? Because he was holding the hammer like this. No? No, it's odd, right? Also, if we look back again, David looks like he's smiling and Paul's not acting in distress, And if that was me, I would have pushed David. Like, once that door opened up, I would have ran straight to the cops. Because it's not like David's in front of him. He's obviously got the better position to just take off. It's odd. But anyways, let's look at this. So, door opens up. I'm trying to. It's a little grainy, guys. I'm sorry, but if we look,
How you doing? All right. What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
the guy looks like he's smiling. Look at this. Look at that. And there's a little smile. He looks a little high. I don't know, man. It's odd.
Hi. Drop the hand.
Hi. And it kind of, there's still a little smile there.
Hammer.
Nope.
And then he goes, oh, no. And then he's like, looks like he's having a little fun trying to get it out of his hand. Obviously, he's wincing right there.
Hey. What is going on right now?
See, no struggle. Why did it? Look, if we go back. Look.
Hey. What is?
Look, he has a fucking cup in his hand. No, I would have fucking threw the cup at him. There's no struggling going on here. No struggling going on there at all. I would have fucking grabbed that cup and fucking hit him on the head with it and took off running to the officers if I was really in danger. It's like, Jesus. It's odd. It's odd. There's no struggle at all. No, and like I said, that footage creates more questions than answers. Now, who opened up the door? If they have an automatic door opener, that's what that is there, right? Then why is that not part of the police report? Why didn't they just say Paul opened up the door with his automatic door opener? Why does Paul not seem distressed? He almost chuckles when he says hello. Why does David look like he's having fun? Why does David look like he's having fun? I'm not going to say it's a kink thing here, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was a fantasy gone wrong. When the cops came, David was supposed to pretend to attack Paul. David pretends to attack Paul. The police arrest David, and amongst the chaos, Paul comes. Paul then drops the charges and makes sure the DA does not get involved because Paul has pull. It's a weird situation, but like I said, this body cam footage creates more questions than answers. And the fact that the police released this photo of the hammer does not help. Odd. Anyways, moving on. Democrats are outraged because, as Hakeem Jeffries has put it, extreme MAGA Republicans trying to impose a 30% sales tax on the American people, we will stop them. Sure. Kind of being a little facetious there. I think so. So, the Freedom Caucus has proposed a bill that would put a variable tax rate on sales, which would be up to 30%. But that is to replace what they're going to get rid of, which they're going to get rid of the income tax, payroll tax, estate tax, and gift tax. And the bill's called HR 25, and let's just read the summary here real quick. The bill imposes a national sales tax on the use or consumption in the United States of taxable property or services in lieu of the current income taxes, payroll taxes, and estate and gift taxes. The rate of the sales tax will be 23 in 2023 with adjustments to the rate in subsequent years. There are exemptions from the tax for use and intangible property, for property or services purchased for businesses, export or investment purpose, and for state government functions. Under the bill, family members who are lawful U.S. residents receive a monthly sales tax rebate based upon criteria related to family size and poverty guidelines. The states have the responsibility for administrating, collecting, and remitting the sales tax to the Treasury. Tax revenues are to be allocated amongst the general revenue, the old age and survivors insurance trust fund, the disability insurance trust fund, the hospital insurance trust fund, and the federal supplement medical insurance trust fund. No funding is authorized for operations of the Internal Revenues Service after fiscal year of 2025. Getting rid of the Fed, son? Fuck yeah. Finally, the bill terminates the national sales tax in the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. It is not repealed within 7 years after the enactment of this bill. Oh, I don't know what the fuck that means, but hell yeah. Getting rid of the Fed. I'm down with that, dude. I'm down with that. You know, the government, they take, from anywhere from like 20 to 30% of your income, a paycheck, you know? And that's, depending on how much you make. I like this because when you get your paycheck, you actually know what you're going to get, right? You get to keep all your wages. If you get a fucking bonus in that paycheck, they're not going to up your rates to 30% because you just made, 3 times the amount that you would have made that paycheck. Because they do that. When I used to get bonuses, I would get taxed like almost 5% more than what I would regularly get taxed. And it would sit there and basically what would happen is I would just get a regular paycheck if it wasn't taxed. I should have been getting a lot more than that. And I would get pissed every time and be like, you know what? I don't know even if I want the bonus. I'd rather just get paid that money in my regular wages. So that way they don't tax me as much when I get, that money. Anyways. Businesses no longer have to pay a tax in order to pay you, which would potentially raise wages. Democrats always talk about wanting to raise the wage. That would raise wages. Because now no longer does a business have to pay a fucking tax in order to give you money. If you inherit an estate, you no longer have to pay tax on that, which is good. I don't think you should have to pay taxes on something that was already taxed when your parents had it. It's kind of double dipping. And if you gift someone something like a house or a car, you no longer have to pay taxes on that as well. It's a gift. I don't see why the government should go through and be like, hey, there's a transfer here. We're going to tax you on that. It was like, why? Why? It's a gift. Or like they even want to tax you if you're gifting money. Like let's say if I wanted to gift money to my parents, tax. They want some of that money and they want up to 50%, almost 9 times out of 10. Gross. So let's look into this a little closer, okay? How much does the IRS ask in income tax? Like I said earlier, it varies depending on how much you make, and Forbes shows a list of 2022's tax income bracket. So let's take a look at that. So if you don't make anything over $10,000, basically you pay nothing. But if you make less than $90,000, you will pay 22%. And that's the average, most Americans make either single or as a household. So 22% is what you will be taxed. So how much do you and businesses pay in payroll tax? Because the business just doesn't pay the payroll tax. You also have to split the share. So let's take a look at this. The current FIC tax rate is 15.3%, paid evenly between employers and employees. This amounts to 7.65% each per payroll cycle. So, if we round up, you pay an extra 8% on your paycheck. How much does the government tax estate transfers? Well, according to NerdWallet, you can get charged anywhere from 18% to 40%, depending on how much you inherit, and they have a table. So it says here, if you inherit $10,000 or less, you have to pay 18%. So if you got $10,000, you'd end up with $8,200. The government doesn't even tax income if you don't make over $10,000. Let's look at the top of the scale here, huh? So, if you inherit $1 million or more, you get taxed 40%. The government takes $400,000 of that million. That's basically, they take half. They take half of the money you inherit from your family. And like I said earlier, that's already taxed money. That money's been taxed. And now they're taxing it again because there's this transfer fee. They're double dipping, man. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's gross. So, what is a gift tax and how much does the government tax gifts? Well, according to Smart Assets, a gift tax is when a person gives money or property to someone other than their spouse or dependent, they may be required to pay gift tax. The federal exercise starts at 18% and can reach up to 40% on certain gift amounts. The responsibility for paying the tax typically lies with the donor, not the individual receiving the gift. While recipients don't face any immediate tax consequences, they may have to pay capital gains tax if they sell gifted property in the future. So not only are they taxing the person giving you the gift, if you later on down the road, let's say like 10 years from now, you don't need it anymore, you're going to sell it, or you're going to, let's just say a car, you're taking the car in and you're going to trade that car up. You're going to get taxed on that gift. So they're basically taking tax from them and tax from you. It's theft, dude. It's theft. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. And they have a little tax bracket here. So let's look at this. So it's basically the same tax bracket as the estate. 40%. Anything over 1 million, 18%, anything under 10,000. So let's sum this up, huh? The bill will save Americans millions of dollars. This bill will make it so Americans can save money or feel comfortable investing because they won't have to answer to the IRS if they make a sizable profit on their investment. This bill will help the regular American who is just trying to get by. Now, and if we just take the income tax and payroll tax just by itself, the average American gets taxed, let's just say it was 22%, but let's just say 20%, okay? Let's drop that down just a little bit more because some Americans, they still probably make $30,000 a year as a single. And then if we take that 20% and then we add the 8% on it, that's 28% every paycheck. That's gone. You don't have to pay that every paycheck. 28% you get back on your paychecks. Now, I would rather have a 30% sales tax than a 28% federal payroll tax on my wages. Because if I can't buy something because like, you know, it's like the tax is a little too much. I was like, you know what? I don't want to buy that. I can at least reallocate that money into something else like a savings account, you know, or IRA or an investment. You know, this bill will stop government theft. But unfortunately, Big Daddy Mitch McConnell will never let it see the light of day in the Senate. You know, and if it somehow passed the Senate, Grandpa Biden will veto it. So, wishful thinking is what this bill is, but I like it, man. I like it. It's showing me that we voted for the right people to get into the House. The Freedom Caucus is doing what they said they're going to do, and it's showing me that there's leadership there now. You know, we're not going to have this perpetual wheel that just keeps on spinning. It's just now the Republicans have control of this perpetual wheel. You know, I like it. I like it a lot. All right, well, this brings us to the big lead for today.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Secession is once again being talked about, which is an eye-rolling topic because the chances of a state getting granted secession is zero. Now, the Supreme Court ruled in 1869 in Texas v. White that the 10th Amendment, which has to do with states' rights, does not give a state a right to secede from the Union. Once the state has joined the Union, you are forever part of the Union, unless you're granted consent from the state. So it's kind of like a mafia thing. Once you're part of the mafia, you're always part of the mafia. The only way you leave is in a box. And the consent from states thing, I think means that all 50 states have to give their permission for a state to leave the union. I don't know. I think that's what it means. I couldn't find anything on it. But what I have to say is good luck trying to get that, if that's the case. However, the talk of secession in the Pacific Northwest is not about leaving the Union, but about a portion of one state leaving to join another, which is a very likely thing that can happen within the next couple of years if there's enough support for it. And those states that might just pull it off are Oregon and Idaho. Now, before we get into the story, Eastern Oregon leaving Idaho would not impact the political landscape heading into 2024. Idaho would gain a seat and Oregon would lose a seat, but Oregon would become dominantly blue with no chance of flipping red in the foreseeable future. And the same would happen to Idaho. They would just become more red. It's a win-win situation for both sides. The significance of this is the possibility of it occurring as well as the reason for it occurring. The last time a state split in two due to political strife was in 1861 when Virginia did so. You know, Western Virginia did not agree politically with their Eastern counterparts. Eastern Virginia believed that owning slaves was a state right and supported secession from the Union. 49 delegates came together and voted for the secession of West Virginia from Greater Virginia. What is happening in Oregon is Eastern Oregon and Western Oregon are two totally different places politically, culturally, and economically. Eastern Oregon is heavily Republican, which means they support the ideology of conservatism and everything that comes with it. And economically, they rely on agriculture, warehousing, and transportation. Western Oregon is heavily Democrat, which means they support the ideology of liberalism and everything that comes with it. They're especially woke in the three major counties surrounding Portland. Economically, Western Oregon relies on exporting, manufacturing, and tech. Two totally different places with different agendas, politically, ideologically, and economically. If this split is to happen, this could be another sign of us possibly heading down the road of civil war. Because history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? So here's one of the biggest reasons as to why this push for Eastern Oregon to join Idaho is happening. Oregon, Washington join California in banning gas-powered new vehicles starting in 2035. New cars sold in Oregon and Washington will have to be emissions-free starting in 2035. The rules adopted Monday by both states will mean an end to the sale of new gas and diesel-powered trucks, passenger cars, and SUVs up and down the West Coast. This is going to be devastating for Eastern Oregon, that relies heavily on gas for the economy to work. And it's what's going to happen is it's not just going to stop there with them saying no more passenger vehicles. It's going to get to the point where they're going to push in these states that everything, gas is banned. Gas is banned. Everything is banned. That's what's going to happen, because that's what happens with Democrats. They take a little inch. They go, oh, we're not going to ban gas. We're just going to ban gas cars. So you can still use your gas cars. And then they'll be like, well, okay, I guess so, if that's what happens. And then it gets passed and it's done. People live with it for a little bit. And they go, we don't want gas, period, here. Everything's electric. There's no need for gas. And Republicans are going to be like, well, no, you said you wouldn't ban gas. I still have a gas car. Well, it sounds like you're going to have to buy an electric car. We'll give you a rebate on it. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's what they've been doing for years. It is, man. It's insane. Anyways. And the electric vehicle, the gas ban for new vehicles is just one of the many reasons why Eastern Oregon wants to secede from Western Oregon. Wallowa becomes 12th Oregon county to seek secession to Idaho. Wallowa County in Eastern Oregon submitted a petition aimed at forcing a ballot initiative in 2023 that would move the county out of the Democratic-led Oregon and into a GOP-led Idaho, and is part of the Greater Idaho movement aimed to relocate the Oregon-Idaho border to make both states better. According to Greater Idaho's website, a spokesman for the Greater Idaho movement, Matt McCraw, said, two major statewide ballot measures got 51% of the vote last month. That means Eastern Oregon came within 1 percentage point of vetoing them. Western Oregon would be free of our interference if they stopped holding Eastern Oregon captive and let our communities join Idaho. Wallowa is the 12th Oregon county that has voted to leave and become part of Idaho. If the petition gets enough signatures, the county clerk would advance an initiative onto the May 2023 Wallowa County ballot. The ballot measure was proposed by Greater Idaho and has the votes of 11 other counties. For the counties to officially move from one state to another, it would take efforts of legislation in Idaho, Oregon, and the U.S. Congress to make the change. So, that's awesome. They came within 1% of making it happen in the last election, and that's without Wallowa County. So, if they can do it by 2023, they will at least have a Republican-led House that might give them an even better odd for making this happen. I say that's good odds. I think so. I think this could really happen if it makes it to Congress. Now, there is the possibility, if this does make it to Congress and it passes, Western Oregon can try and sue, and that lawsuit would be dead upon arrival, because Eastern Oregon has a Supreme Court hearing that is in their favor of their efforts, and the hearing is Virginia v. West Virginia. So in 1971, the Supreme Court ruled, since the constituents gave consent to West Virginia to secede from Greater Virginia, West Virginia does not have to rejoin Virginia. And that was after the Civil War. And that's me simplifying the fuck out of that. Because there's more to it, but that's basically what it came down to, was the Supreme Court said, well, the constituents of this area gave consent for Western Virginia leaving the Greater Virginia area. So I would say if it comes down to a lawsuit and Western Oregon tries to keep Eastern Oregon, they're going to win that lawsuit. hands down. And I'm from Idaho. I grew up in Canyon County, which is like right next to Oregon. It's really like you just drive 30 minutes from where I grew up and you're there in Oregon. And if we pull up a map here, so if we look at Pocatello, Idaho, and if you go all the way to Bend, Oregon, and then all the way up to Pendleton, if it wasn't for the signs that says you're in Oregon, you wouldn't know where Idaho ends and Oregon begins. The departure makes sense, and I think it would bring balance to the Pacific Northwest politically. I guarantee you, if Eastern Oregon pulls this off, Eastern Washington will be following right behind it, because they're basically in the same boat. And I just want to show you this, and this is just so that way you guys understand if you're not from the area. If we go from Idaho Falls all the way up to Yakima and to Spokane and Adden Bend and Pendleton, all this area down here, you would not know where it all ends and begins, because it looks exactly the same. It's all highland desert, I think is what it's called. It is. It's all farmland. It's plains. There's mountains, but it's like you would not know. Like, you can tell the difference between Eastern Oregon and Western Oregon, just like you could tell the difference between Eastern Washington and Western Washington. Like, we call it the dark side of the mountain on the eastern side, because once you hit those mountains, you're in a totally different place. It's it's trees everywhere. The politics are heavily different. It's like night and day different, politically wise. And I don't know. It makes sense to me. This is what Idaho would look like in the future if this was possibly to happen. So, Idaho would lose its iconic shape and become this weird thing with the penis sticking out of it, but I'm okay with that. But yeah, so it would basically take it would just be where the mountains start. That's basically where it would end up at. Which, I think should happen. Just let it happen, man. They don't want to be part of you anymore. They don't. But here's one last thing, to kind of drive in as to why this should happen, and why this is happening to begin with. So if we bring up an electoral map, this is the political landscape of Oregon. So if we look at Eastern Oregon, look how red that is, dude. And this is of the 2022 governor election, and the reason we pulled it up because it's by county. But look at that. That's all Eastern Oregon. All that wants to go over here to Idaho. And if we count up these counties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 counties on the other side of the mountains in Oregon dictates what all these counties, go. What rules get made. How they live their lives. These 7 counties, and especially these 3 counties, dictate all this. And if we switch over to a county map that has the cities within it. Let's get rid of that, huh? So, I think we can see these. So, Hillsborough, I think it's Hillsborough, Beaverton, and Gresham, and Portland. Those 4 cities have 24 House seats out of the 60 in Oregon states. And if you add Salem in there, those 24 House seats become 28. So realistically, those 4 cities plus Salem get to tell, and to switch back over, this whole area how to think politically, culturally, and economically. That's insane. This little area right here tells this whole area right here how to fucking live. And then add in Salem down here. I think Salem's right there. That's insane, dude. And it's the same thing for Washington as well. But anyways, I don't blame them for wanting to leave at all. Especially when your neighbors living on the other side of the mountains are constantly threatening your way of life. And here's this. Oregon ballot initiative would criminalize hunting, livestock slaughter, and even pest control. Hunting, breeding, livestock, even pest control would be all but illegal under a ballot initiative backed by Oregon animal rights activists and opposed by the incensed Oregon farmers. The proposal, Initiative Petition 13, would lift virtually all exemptions to state laws related to animal abuse, neglect, and sexual assault. I don't know why that's in there, but okay. The vast majority would ban common farming practices from artificial insemination used in target breeding and killing live animals for meat. Farm animals could only be raised for rodeos, milk, and fur, and could be spayed, neutered, and castrated. In addition, IP 13 would further restrict hunting, fishing, trapping, international injury of an animal that would bring undue suffering. Research labs would be prohibited from experimenting on non-human mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians. All of the activities listed would carry criminal penalties. IP 13 was approved by Oregon Secretary of State for circulation on July 15th. Under Oregon's initiative petition process, IP 13 organizers have until July 22nd to gather the 112,000 signatures needed to get the initiative onto the November 2022 ballot. David Andrew Michaels, a Portland animals rights activist and the initiative's chief petitioner, he and organizers have claimed on IP's 13 website and elsewhere that the state's $5.7 billion farming industry would adjust to the laws accordingly without evidence. Crop production, they say, would likely rise to make up for falling meat supplies. Okay. Okay. Oh, God. That's so fucking rough, man. That's so rough. That is. Can you imagine being a farmer and being like, what fucking dipshit in Portland wrote this up? One dipshit in Portland is threatening my way of life. Fortunately, it didn't get enough signatures, so they kind of, passed the buck on that one for right now. Because they only had just under a year to get it approved. But don't worry, people. They got it approved again. So, approval to circulate IP3. Today, July 12th, 2022, the Secretary of State has given our campaign the approval to circulate IP3. Who the fuck is the Secretary of State? He needs to go, man. We can now resume signature collection in order to qualify for the November 2024 general election. So now they have 2 years to gather the amount of signatures that they need. And I was trying to find the amount of signatures they got the last time. It didn't come up, but I do know they only had like maybe a little less than a year to gather those signatures. So our campaign has just under 2 years to collect the 112 signatures necessary to qualify. IP3 is the first ballot initiative in history that would criminalize the killing and breeding of animals. Fuck, dude. We want to protect an animal's universal right to life, and we believe that the ballot initiative process is an effective, nonviolent, and democratic strategy for social change. Fucking sorry boys, man. Fucking Jesus, dude. That's insane. That's one of your biggest, economies is the agricultural scene in Oregon. The western part of Oregon is all imports and they exports. They export their agriculture and make money, but they import everything they need to survive. that's importing from Eastern Oregon into Western Oregon, and they import from out for them so that way they can eat and survive. Jesus, dude. So to tell you the truth, if Eastern Oregon can't split off in 2023, IP3 is going to make it to the ballot. And it will probably pass by less than 1%, because that's how much pull those 7 counties have. You know, it's insane. And they have enough people to make it pass. Oregon and Washington are the forefront states that demonstrate clearly how divided American culture is and how the fringe controls the majority. When a country is that divided, there's only one destination, and that's some type of civil war. Now, civil war doesn't mean boots on the ground fighting. It could mean that the majority rises up and takes back the institutions that we gave up. A cultural civil war, where conservatism regains ground in our educational institutions, our religious institutions, cinema, art, music. Now, which is happening right now. Conservative figures are rising up and making a parallel culture and economy to rival the current institutions. Now, and if that's the case, we are currently in a civil war, and we just don't know it yet. And we will only learn it when the victors write history. And that ends the big lead.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So, that ends the show, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please hit the like button and definitely subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure to ring the bell. I upload episodes weekly and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Audio listeners, you can subscribe too. Thank you for listening. But hey, you know you want to watch the videos we played. You can watch the Deplorable Talk Show on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. You can listen to the Deplorable Talk Show on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Stitcher. You can find links in the description below, or you can head to the Deplorable ENT. That's the general hub for all things deplorable. Take care, guys. See you next episode.